Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Final Whistle podcast. And I've got another brilliant guest for you. So I've got Andy Davies, who's the host of the Across the Pod podcast. And big fan of the podcast. Go and follow him on Instagram, YouTube, amazing content. And yeah, we've got a really, really good show lined up for you all. So, Andy, how are you doing? Are you good?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Good to be on. Thank you for inviting me on to the episode, and yeah, look forward to chatting all things NFL.
It was an absolute pleasure. I went on Andy's show last season, I think it was, with Jay. And it was I still talk about that show in particular because I mentioned to you and Jay then that the Packers should go all in for Myles Garrett, offer him the world, and you're like, it's never gonna happen. And now we've got Micah Parsons, and I'm like, yeah, remember that moment? But I'm good. I'm glad you're doing really, really well. So, first thing I wanted to ask you, and I've wanted to ask you this anyway, is that first ever game in Ireland, and obviously you was there as part of the media. So, what was that like? Because last week I had a different guest on, and his name's David Lucero, and he was the Packers fan of the year for last year. And he went to the first game in Brazil when we played the Eagles last season. And it was really interesting listening to sort of his experience of Brazil, the good and the bad. But yeah, what was Ireland like and how special was it?
I thought it was really good. Obviously, the first ever game in Ireland, that's always going to be a bit more special. I
Yeah,
remember seeing the game in Germany in 2022. That looked like it was just an amazing experience and atmosphere, and I felt like this one on the weekend, I felt like I was watching it in Pittsburgh. I mean, the city itself was just full of Americans. Me and a guy called Freddie, we went to a few bars on the Saturday. We went to Temple Bar, for example, and that was
yeah,
just,
yeah.
I didn't hear many Irish accents. I heard just, it was all just American accents. There was not many Irish people there. It was all just Americans. They took over Dublin. It was incredible. And then, I've been to games in America, and this was probably the nearest I felt to any international game like I was watching it in America. I felt like I was watching it in Pittsburgh,
That's
and I think the specialness of Croke Park and not many sports events are held there to have an NFL game there. Just the overall atmosphere and just the vibe around Ireland was just really special.
David was asking me that because he lives in Kentucky now, but he lived in Green Bay for a little bit, and he was asking, he was like, "What is the vibe of an American game to a UK game?" And I was like, "The London games are good, and it is an incredible experience, but it doesn't quite get to an experience in America." But everybody that I've spoke to that went to the Irish games are like, it was pretty close to other than get hopping on a plane and go and watch your team out there. It looks so special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a way that's why I do think the Wembley games have better atmosphere than Tottenham purely on the basis that the Jags put a lot of work into Wembley, like the Steelers did with Dublin. I felt like that was a real difference I think you have. And I think when you have the Jags playing on Sunday, you'll get a real difference there. That'll put a lot. Of course, when you even try and get tickets, you go through the Jags, not Ticketmaster, where
Yeah,
when you go to London. So, yeah, I think that does make a huge difference. And I'm intrigued, with the more countries that get involved, I think there's a lot of, involvement with Paris and the Saints. There's a lot of involvement with
yeah.
multiple countries, and I think I'm hoping that it'll be like that in Madrid. And I do think that with the Ireland game, it just felt like you could really tell the Steelers put a lot of effort into it. They, had a terrible towels out. It just felt like you watching it in America, and probably the nearest I felt to that of all the games I've been to internationally.
I saw a quote from Jason Kelsey today where he was saying that the game in Ireland in particular felt like an NFL game, and he was like, London started like that, but London's kind of, he said it's got a bit of a Pro Bowl vibe where he's like, everyone's just happy to be there and it is what it is. So somebody asked me this question today, and I'm going to put you on the spot now. And they were like, what the NFL have done brilliantly for European fans is that we now get football, even though the games are sometimes stinkers, which isn't their fault because I went to the Bears game last year just to go and watch a game. And I was a bit, oh, it's the Bears. And it turned out to be a really good game of football. And I was like, that was great. And nobody can predict that. But whilst they're really good at growing the sport and getting a base there, how does the London Games take that next step? Because somebody asked me today, they were like, could London have a Super Bowl? And I'm like, theoretically, yes, it could. But it's a bit of a big step to go through from 3 games a year to you're going to have a Super Bowl. This is going to be amazing. What do you think that next step is? Do you think?
I think that is the next step. I think, I do feel like in a way, you've got that core fan base. Getting it to be, I just don't think it'll ever be as big as football, rugby, golf. I think as great as a sport is, and we both love the sport.
Yeah,
I do feel like it's never going to compete with that because he's had a lot longer of a staple in people's households. It's a lot more of a recognised sport in the UK, and I think whilst it is growing every year, the Super Bowl would take it to the next level. But I want to sort of refer to Anthony Wootton from the BBC, someone I've got to know quite well. He said that the Americans will never change from the 7 p.m. kickoff on Super Bowl. So that will never change.
no,
So that would be 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And I just don't feel like, unless they 1 year leading and go, right, for 1 year, we'll do it earlier. That's the only way. And that would be incredible. I think that would be such a good thing for the UK. You think how much money it brings into a city that hosts it. Now, London's got money, but to add all that to it, I dread to think what the cost of hotels would be like during that week. But no, I think there's definitely a stagnated feel in terms of not the atmosphere, but in terms of how they can grow it further. And I think you even with the ticket issues, you still got a lot of fans there. There weren't many empty seats in London this
yeah,
weekend and last weekend, so I do feel like it is what you do next because yeah, that it is tough, and I'm torn to know how else you can do it apart from an event like this. And I
yeah,
think
yeah,
unless you get the playoff game is impossible. You can't get a playoff game, and people talked years ago about having a playoff game in the UK. That would be ridiculous, in my opinion. But certainly, or maybe even things like maybe like a prime time game. I think maybe get a game on Sunday Night Football, get it to the UK. But otherwise, yeah, it's tough to know how you can build it because you've got the recognised games that you've got them every year. So you've got guaranteed football. People now saying have they stagnated? But I think we're lucky to have NFL games still in the
yeah,
UK compared to what it was like 20 years ago when there was no games in the UK.
yeah.
How you get it now from where it is now, where it's a recognised part of the UK sporting calendar, you get loads of fans turn up, new fans and regular fans. But how do you get it? And the Channel 5 show, I think, has been a good idea in terms of bringing in new fans,
Yeah.
getting in new fans. I think that's the way I think now is get it more at a grassroots level, more flag football at schools,
Yeah,
um, and have more clothing available in shops, more coverage on TV in the UK. And I think all of that, I think that's the way you do it because you want people to, because I started watching NFL properly at like 15, 16, where
yeah,
some
yeah,
people in America watch it from 4 years old. So I think that's probably how you do it now is to build a real fan base, is to get it basically being something that kids are aware of from 5 years old, 6 years
yeah.
old.
I started playing flag a couple of years ago, and my nieces now do it in primary school. Like there's such this massive push to sort of get kids in particular so used to the game and used to the sport that is so positive. But somebody asked me that today, and I was like, I would love a Super Bowl here. But imagine two Western side of America teams coming to the UK to play a game at 1 a.m. That how do you then try and commit and build the sport here without doing something really, really drastic? But I'd be up for it. If somebody said this is Super Bowl in the UK, but it is a 1 a.m. kickoff, I still think it would be special enough to kind of go all in and be like, absolutely, it's your sport. Because I think it was Emerson. Emerson asked me that because I asked Emerson a question, and he's the sports broadcaster out in Green Bay. And I asked him and was like, from Americans' perspective, what is the view of taking this American sport that doesn't get played anywhere else in the world and bringing it abroad. And he was like, it's sometimes it does get a lot of stick and it isn't overly popular in America. And I was like, for me, I think it's amazing because I get to watch Aaron Rodgers, I get to watch all these amazing quarterbacks. And then, but he said, you're a United fan. What would you do if United Liverpool, a Premier League derby, was played in San Francisco? I was like, I'd hate it. Absolutely not. You're not allowed to do that. I was like, it's the same thing, but I'm with you. A Super Bowl in London would be amazing. Would be very,
To be
very
fair as well, you think about 1 a.m. time, that would really peter out who's a hardcore fan, who's not. I mean,
absolutely.
a casual fan isn't coming to Super Bowl 1 a.m. Maybe they are because it's a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
but think about an NFL game in a regular season at 1 a.m., say it's Sunday night football, Thursday night football, whatever it is, you would really see who are the real fans because I would go at 1 a.m. Even though I don't do late nights, I think 1 a.m. I would do it for a game like that. Whereas I think if you're a casual fan, you're thinking, do I want to be up at 1 a.m.? Probably
Yeah.
not. So, yeah.
I answered that honestly when he was like, "Oh, do you stay up for all the Packers games?" I'm like, "Listen, if we're playing the Browns at 1:30 in the morning, absolutely not. I am not staying up for that. Not on a Sunday, not a chance. But a Super Bowl, absolutely. I would love that." So you are a Miami Dolphins fan, and it feels like we always talk Packers on here, but we're going to talk Dolphins just for you because what is going on? And the question I would ask you is, obviously today Tua is being quoted as being, these issues, and McDaniel's has come out and said, I think misguided is the word that he used, and we're at a point where the Titans have changed their coach. Is it the big talking point for me as a fan? Where do you sit on that? That clearly there are problems. Are you with McDaniels? Are you with Tua? Can they work together? Yeah, what do you think?
Where do you start? I think the easy question is what's going right and then going wrong. That's the short. That's the the shorter answer. It's been a disappointment beyond belief. I mean, I was had this hope we could surprise people and
Yeah,
be better than people think, maybe get 8 wins or something like that. But what I've seen so far has been it's been dreadful. I mean, I can handle losing to the Bills, because they're a good team, and I can handle, almost beating the Patriots. But the losses against the Panthers and Colts were terrible. I mean, even the Colts teams have these one-off performances where they just get
yeah,
blown out. But when you're 17-0 up against one of the worst teams in the league and you still lose and find ways to lose, and there's penalties after penalties, yeah, it's been a really poor season. And we almost the what game we won, we could have easily lost that. Jets
yeah,
kept,
yeah.
they kept basically shooting themselves in the foot. We could have easily be sitting here 0-6 quite easily. It has been a disaster, and it's not even just on the field. You mentioned it then about the McDaniel stuff and the tour stuff. I mean, you want your quarterback to be a leader when he's coming out and just finding ways to criticize his team publicly. When if he'd not said anything, no one would even bat an eyelid. No one would have known that. And now all he's doing is just adding more questions to the media, more distractions.
Yeah.
And I saw uh, unnamed player was saying in the media that on Twitter, I should say, that 2 was late to these meetings. He's saying everyone else is late for. So there seems to be a lack of discipline, I think, all round. I mean, Chris Greer, how he's kept the job is beyond me. I mean, he's had no playoff wins since he became GM. Only a handful of Eagles fans have seen more playoff wins last season than I've seen playoff appearances in my 14, 15 years being a fan. That just shows the kind of job Chris Greer's done. There was that draft where we took horrendous. I think it was 2020. We took two, but we took Noah Iguanogamy, and we took some. We could have taken Anton Wingfield and Justin Jefferson. There's been some terrible decisions made upstairs. I think that's part of the issue. Is we had a head coach who was tough on players, and in Brian Flores, who, well, on one hand, I think he did maybe take it too far at times.
Yeah, yeah.
In games we played, we had fight. Whereas I felt McDaniel is trying to be everyone's friend, and I think that he's just not had any discipline at all. I mean, there's reports last year that Tyreek Hill was late to meetings. Two has sort of confirmed that players are late to meetings this year. You kind of think, how are you expecting to win these games? And we've been criticised a lot for not winning these big games and not beating teams with winning records, not winning in cold weather. I'm not surprised when we're not even turning up being disciplined by a head coach. If our head coach is allowing these players to be late for meetings, to break the rules, how are we expecting him to guide a team to win games and win big games? So I think that for me the issue is massively it's from the top down. It's actually a bit like Man U, you'll know full well.
Oh,
From the owner
don't start.
down.
Yeah.
Well, we're playing in next Sunday this Sunday. I'm very
There we are.
careful what I say because you could easily do us over at Anfield. But it's it's just we. I remember, I was in Dublin. I was talking about people talking about, Mike Tomlin. Could he leave if they go 9-8? People see John Harbaugh getting booed at the Ravens. People saying, is he going to leave the Ravens? If they become available, literally day one, go and get them because they would not take any nonsense. Tomlin and Harbaugh are the kind of guys we need. Vrabel would have been a perfect guy.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you can't go and get him when you've won two winning seasons, two playoff seasons, but Vrabel was available for a couple of off seasons. You
Yeah,
could
yeah.
have easily got someone like that in, and that to me is the issue. McDaniel, I think, is a great OC, and I think he would be a great OC somewhere. He's proved that at the Niners he can be a good coordinator, but I think as a head coach, you need that discipline,
Absolutely.
and I feel like he hasn't got that, and that's why our best players are, not turning up to meetings. Our best players are, you know, calling out other players. So for me, it is just all round a mess. It has been since Mourinho retired. It's a reason why we've had the longest drought of a playoff win. There's a reason for that because there seems to be issues all round. There's talk that the stadium's built on a burial ground, which people think is some sort of curse. Which I'm in favor. I kind of believe that could be true, but yeah, it's just problems after problems. Hasn't seemed to fix anything at all. And yeah, it just seems to be getting worse and worse. But I'm hopeful that, all this pain, all this suffering, all these losses are going to eventually lead to a positive turn around the corner.
Well, I always think that someone, we were talking about this in an NFL WhatsApp that I was in today, and I said about Tua, I'm not Tua's biggest fan. I think there are big question marks as a quarterback. But when you've come from Alabama with Nick Saban and the factory that he has produced of just stars and that structure, and then you've got McDaniels, and I'm like, ugh, he doesn't feel like the type of person that Tua would want to be coached by or want to be in that type of environment when he is one of the lads. He's always put himself up as being that type of persona. And even with the question marks I would have over Tua, when I was reading his interview, I was like, I'm not surprised that you feel like that, that when he was in a quarterback room with Jalen Hurts, Nick Saban as the head coach, and you think, something's just not right there. And especially with it was Tyreek Hill, wasn't it, at the end of last season that was like, I'm out. I've checked out of this. But if you were given the option now, do you replace Tua or do you replace the head coach? What do you go with, do you think?
I am not at all big Tua's biggest fan, but I would probably change McDaniel because I feel like, yeah, I think that the issue is leadership again, and no one's sort of putting players up and telling them they're doing this wrong and doing that wrong. Now, Flores did do that, and I think maybe some would argue too much. I think you kind of even Brady Belichick didn't get on, so I kind of think that
Yeah, yeah,
always isn't the biggest thing in the world. But I feel like with Nick Saban, I don't watch much college football, but I feel like what I've got the sense of is that he is hard on players, but also like a father figure to them. And I think that is kind of he's got that nice little balance. And I'm aware that Alabama is probably one of the easiest places to play quarterback when he was there. Receiver after receiver, track runner after track runner. But at the same time, he made plays in important games. But I just feel like I do feel like the organization has failed to a lack of protection. There has been a lot of things that we've done as an organization that hasn't really done enough to protect him. Or you think
yeah,
about, I love Waddle, my favorite player right now, but we could have got Penei Sewell in that draft. We've never really taken any top linemen, and I think year after year we're seeing Dolphins going for these defensive players or going for these weapons, but actually you think what the Lions have done, how they've turned their franchise round. One of the first players they took was Penei Sewell, and they
yeah,
got this lineman, that lineman, and I do think lineman is the most valuable position in NFL. If your line doesn't play well, you aren't going to win anything. Burrow almost won a Super Bowl with a bad line, but
yeah.
not many quarterbacks do that. And that's a credit to Burrow. But I think with Tua, we haven't given him enough support. We've given him Hill and Waddle, but if the O line can't protect you, then what can you do? And Tua isn't safe from this criticism. He's been absent. He's been injured for a lot of the big games. He's played poorly in a lot of big games down the stretch. So it kind of is on McDaniel and Tua. I think they're both got part to play in his demise, as well as Chris Greer, who probably is the biggest problem out of the three. But I think the thing with Tua, I would love to say, oh yeah, let's get rid of him, let's bench him. But who can we bring in? I mean, you
Yeah.
can take a chance and you can put in Quinn Ewers the rest of the year. But then if you go get a quarterback in the draft, there's no guarantee they're going to be as good, and there's no one available in free agency you're going to get that's going to be. So we're sort of stuck in this middle of the road. We're paying him a lot of money as well, so no one's going to take on his contract with his injury record and his performances this year. So for me, I think I would love to have a new quarterback. I'm sitting here watching Baker Mayfield. I'm sitting here watching Allen, Burrow, Mahomes. I'm thinking I would love these quarterbacks to be. I would love Josh Allen. Josh Allen has caused me a lot of pain in my Dolphins fandom.
Yeah.
I just can't help but love watching him play, the kind of player he is. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I would love that. I would love a Joe Burrow. I would love a Jalen Hurts. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Who can you get that's better than Tua? Unless you take a chance on a quarterback in a draft and you have the third overall pick this year and you go and get a quarterback. But a lot of quarterbacks don't succeed when they're picked high because the team around them isn't that good. So yeah, I think coaching is the first issue. Get a guy who's gonna basically dictate these guys, not dictate, but bring these guys, in check,
Yeah.
tell them what's what, and don't take any messing around. If players are late to meetings, don't play them. Think of Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings. Jordan Addison missed a warm up or practice, and he didn't play in the first quarter, but he then still played him, told him how important he was. So I think Kevin O'Connell proved how to be a head coach in that moment. They
Yeah.
won the game as well, but he had that. He made players, he punished players for doing something wrong, but also he managed to make him feel loved and make him feel part of the team. You'll know as well. Alex Ferguson, he
Yeah.
had players, bench players like Park Ji Sung, John O'Shea, Darren Fletcher, but he made them feel like they're the most important player in the team. And I think that's what you need. I think Kevin O'Connell is an example of that. And I said it before, if John Harbaugh is available or Mike Tomlin, particularly Harbaugh, I think go and get him day one.
Yeah.
Because Andy Reid was at the Eagles and he was hired by the Chiefs within 24 hours or 2 days of being fired by the Eagles, and look what's happened there. So I think, yeah, if he's available, certainly go and get someone like that.
Yeah. I think what you were saying about the Lions then is so true that just one change in Dan Campbell going in there and completely resetting the organization and acknowledging there is a problem here. There is a problem. There's been a problem for years, and we're going to change it. Whereas, speaking as a United fan, when you kind of rest on that reputation of the Miami Dolphins, probably one of the most supported team in the UK, historical franchise that history only gets you so far before you go, actually, that I never knew that the Eagles have had more playoff trips to the playoffs than you've ever seen with the Dolphins. That is nuts to think the Miami Dolphins is like that, but it is going to take a big reset and a big change.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think sometimes you need that year of adversity to then go and get success. I mean, you think about Joe Burrow got injured in 2020, and what happened then? They had a low draft pick, and they got a high draft pick, and they got Jamar Chase. So I
Yeah,
think sometimes you have to go through that period, and I think that's why the NFL is so great. It rewards
absolutely.
loyalty and also punishes glory hunters. Like the Broncos fans may have watched that Super Bowl when they beat the Panthers, managed that game, and thought, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go and support them. They're a good team." No playoff appearances until last season after that win. So I think that we have to go through some sort of adversity
Yeah.
to then have success. But it's been 25 years of adversity, so
Yeah.
hopefully we can get a good pick, even if it's like if there's a good lineman in the fourth overall pick or fifth overall pick, go and get them, build on him, build your team around him, provided he's not a bust, and go from there. And I think that's how you hopefully we can rebuild this team because it's been a lot of years of suffering.
Yeah. The good thing with the NFL is you never know what is around the corner. I never in my wildest dreams thought we would get Micah Parsons. Ever. Never, ever, ever. And talking of Joe Burrow, he ain't going to stay at the Bengals. There is no chance he's going to spend his entire career there. He's never going to get to a Super Bowl ever with the Bengals again, I don't think. So you don't know, do you? If somebody comes in and you go, do you know what? Let's maybe get a Joe Burrow type and then build around that and see what happens. Within 2 years, you are a Super Bowl contending team again. But
That is the thing.
yeah, also speaking of rebuilds, it kills me to say it, but Liverpool Football Club. We're moving on to a bit of soccer because my mate Emerson in Green Bay shocked me by being a Sunderland fan. So it feels only right. This is the time that we acknowledge Emerson Lehman out in Green Bay. So I think the next game is United Liverpool, isn't it?
Mm. What I'm going to have to miss, unfortunately, working at the game at Wembley is going to be on during that game. So I'm going to have to. They did have, because last time there was a game at Wembley, they had Man City against Wolves.
Yeah,
On.
yeah,
So I might have to, if it's on during, if it's at the end of the quarter break or like a TV timeout, I'm going to quickly run from
yeah.
my press box all the way to the TV room and just see whether they got it on. Because, yeah, I've not missed many Man U Liverpool games in my whole life being a Liverpool fan. So it's yeah, interesting. It's a bit concerning. I think prior to about a fortnight ago, I would have been very confident for this game, but now I'm looking at it thinking you could win this game. You could actually beat us.
The annoying thing with United now is you just don't know anymore that usually we play really well against City and Liverpool and we'll turn up, but you just don't know. We beat Sunderland, which means he's never won back-to-back games. That you're probably going to battle us like 8-0, and that is the mindset of a United fan now. I think we're either going to levy you or it'll be the opposite way around, and you'll absolutely batter us.
Yeah, that's the weird thing because we had our worst season under Klopp a couple of years ago, and you won an FA Cup that season. Or did
Yeah,
you
we
make
did.
the final? And we beat you 7-0. And then there's times where when you're going for your best time as Ferguson, we beat you at, Old Trafford 4-1, or we beat you at Anfield, Ryan Babel. And then you think about when we were, going for league titles. Well, last season we lost one game all season at that point. You could have easily won that game if Maguire had scored the
Yeah,
goal. And the Klopp, when he had a couple of, that second place finish with 97 points, we drew, I think, 0-0 at Old Trafford. Um, almost lost against you a year later with Lana's last minute equaliser. So I think there's times where form goes out the window in these games. It really
yeah,
does, and I think that goes for a lot of rivalries: Tottenham, Arsenal, Rangers, Celtic. But this is one where a team could be playing really well and lose and play really badly and win. So for me, it's a huge game, always is, and I think with that 6 point gap, I think Man
yeah.
U fans will certainly. I think you'll probably feel like you got a chance to maybe upset us, but yeah, I'm not sure how to feel. I'm hoping the break can do as good. Isak scored a screamer for Sweden the other day.
Yeah.
Although Wirtz was apparently awful against Northern Ireland, so it's very much. Oh, where do you start with it all?
My mate Finn is a massive Liverpool fan, and I'm like, I will die on the hill that other than Haaland, anybody that's ever moved from the Bundesliga don't get excited about him. Because I remember getting Kagawa when he was Bundesliga Player of the Year, was unbelievable for Dortmund, never turned up for United. Mkhitaryan, unbelievable for Dortmund, never turned up for United. And when Florian Wirtz came to Liverpool, I said to him, I was like, you just hold your horses with it because it is the Bundesliga. And that might be a controversial opinion, but I'm like, nobody's ever really hit the ground running other than Haaland from Germany. It's a farmers' league, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, Gravenberch eventually come good, but he,
Yeah,
he took a year to settle, and I think as well, people, I guarantee, I never really seen Wirtz play much apart from the years. I don't watch Bundesliga football. I watched a couple of Leverkusen games when they were trying to win the league title, but I never really watched him play. So, and
yeah,
I think that a lot of people, the price tag will make people think automatically, oh, he's going to be amazing. And you watch his highlights, and you think, oh, this guy's amazing. Then you think about how much more time he has to move the ball around in the Bundesliga. He hasn't got that time in the Premier League. You see him
yeah.
a lot of times just did try and do a little back flick last week, went to no one. It just feels like he thinks he has all time in the world to make these passes or make these shots, and he just gets completely, back down to reality with some of the challenges that are on him. But I think, he had the most chances created this season, so he's maybe not as bad as we think, but still not what you want to pay 100 million for.
The interesting thing with Liverpool at the moment is, and maybe this is my wishful thinking, is that when obviously Alex Ferguson left and Moyes came in, I think that is the worst team that has ever won the Premier League. It was awful, that United team. And I was saying it again to my mate Finn today. I was like, if you think of the team that Slot took over, it was unbelievable. That team could win a Premier League. And now we're kind of seeing Slot's influence on the squad, his style of football, players that he's bringing in. So is he really as good as what you think he is? Because that team could have always, and obviously did, win a Premier League. It's interesting that now we're seeing Slot fully in the position. They're struggling a little bit, but that is probably me just wishful thinking, and he's just embedding players in.
Yeah, I mean, the one solace I have is that we played this badly and we're still second place, 1 point off top. So it just takes a couple of results to go right and it can all change again. And, Slot has managed to improve players like Gravenberch, Gakpo. But at the same time, we won the league both times in the last 5 years without really buying anyone. Harvey Elliott and Vandenberg didn't play any of them really. And last season it was Chase and Mamardashvili. So I think sometimes less is more. And I feel like right now it's a lot of people to bring in. And I can't think of many teams that actually have bought players. Like City took them a few years to win a trophy when they started spending money. Chelsea the same thing in 03, 04. Took them a couple of years to win the trophy. So I think right now it's just a lot of people to bring in at once. I think, the players you've all bought are young. So I think give it 3 or 4 years, we probably will hopefully have won
Yeah,
something by then. But I think it might just take a bit of time. And I think Slot done an amazing job, gave me one of the best days of my life, going to the parade at Liverpool, watching it with my dad, going to the parade with my dad, all that kind of stuff. So I
it's
can't,
special, isn't it?
yeah, it's special. I think he's given me a lot of good memories, but yeah, boy, it needs to change quickly.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. Last two questions I've got for you
Oh no, okay, go for it.
are your predictions. So question one, you've got Dolphins Browns, and then you've got United Liverpool. What score and what result are you taking?
I'll go for the easy one. I'll go for a draw at Anfield. I go for like a 1-1 or a 0-0, something like
Okay.
that. And then with Dolphins Browns, I'm gonna go for the Browns win. I have
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
God.
That
Listen,
shows my confidence in the
oh,
team.
yeah, they beat us, so you never know. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I think that defense alone, Judkins as well. I just think that Panthers loss has really given me no hope in ever beating a team again. I think it might be the Miles Garrett show. I think it might be one of those ones where maybe we do lead at some point in the game, and I do think
Yeah,
it
yeah.
might be. I think it'll be a field goal to win it for the Browns. I'm going to go for something like, 20 to no, maybe 20-17 to the Browns, something like that.
And my last question for you is me and my mate Finn used to do an old podcast called That's Deluded, and we've kept that element of the show. So I want to know your most deluded opinion for this season. It can either be football or NFL. And I've had some stinkers. I've had somebody right at the beginning saying Russell Wilson is going to have an MVP season and the Giants are going to make the playoffs. And we know how that's going. So I've had some stinkers.
I thought you could say of all time, I had a great one for all time, but in terms of
Oh,
this
come on,
season,
what's an all-time one?
um, Neymar was never the third best player in the world.
Do you know what? I actually think I'd agree with you on that.
He was a weak link in that Barca front three. Not awful, he was still good, but Messi and Suarez, I felt like they carried that team a lot more than he did. I think
Absolutely.
he was missing in big games, got a bad injury record. I never thought he was still not a bad player, but I never thought he was in that sort of just behind Messi and Ronaldo sort of chat. A lot of people had that at one point. They were saying Messi, Ronaldo, and then Neymar would win the next Ballon d'Or. But yeah, I think a bit of a wasted career, I think, for Neymar. But in terms of this season, tough. I've had no time to prepare for this. Oh,
I like putting people on the spot because mine is the Packers are winning the Super Bowl. I'm like, you can call me deluded, call me just because we've got one player, we're winning the Super Bowl, and I'll die on that hill for this year.
That's interesting. Mine would have been a couple weeks ago. The Bills won't lose a single game at home this year. But what can my deluded opinion be in about either sport?
Either sport.
I that that's tough. That's tough. I need to try and think of something. Think anyone MVP? No.
Who is going to win the Super Bowl? Because it is up for opinion for the first time ever this year. I think it's like, if you take my opinion out of it, I'm like, I don't actually know.
You know what? I'm going to roll with the momentum. I'm going to go. This might not be actually that controversial. The
Yeah, yeah.
Bucks are going to win the NFC.
The who's going to win it?
Buccaneers.
Ooh, really?
Baker Mayfield train. I'm riding fully on the Baker Mayfield train. I think that the Lions have showed weaknesses. The Packers have showed some
Yeah, we
weaknesses.
have. We have.
Sticky's more than love. The Eagles have lost their last two games. They've shown some flaws. They've had games they maybe shouldn't have won in the first place. I think the Rams are a good contender, but I just feel like I don't know. I think
Like it.
the hype train. One last dance for Mike Evans, Bucky Irving, that defense. I think it could be a case where the Bucks make the Super Bowl, Baker wins MVP, but they lose to the Bills or someone like that, or even the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs could still win that AFC. I really do think they showed me on the weekend that they could win the AFC.
That is the thing I hate about them. That I'm all in on the Bills. I'm like, the Bills are going to make the Super Bowl, but it's going to be the Chiefs. Yeah, I love that. So Baker Mayfield, MVP, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to the Super Bowl. I love it. Well, mate, thank you very much. And guys, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Go and give Andy a follow. Go and listen to his content, because if you are a fan of the NFL, you will absolutely love it. And it's just unfortunate he's a Liverpool fan, but you'll get it. Mate, thank you very much for coming on. I really, really appreciate
No
it.
problem at all. Thank you.